This is an adventure review for the classic Dungeons and Dragons adventure, The Devil Box, by Richard Pett, originally published in Dungeon Magazine 109. It has artwork by Peter Verting, cartography by Craig Zipsey. It was written originally for 4 second level characters, although it could be run with a first level group, although I would recommend that any first level group in this adventure have some silver weapons or access to magic, as there are lycanthropes in this adventure. It could easily be modified as well for 4th to 5th level characters by just increasing the number of enemies or adding some additional threats. You can see here there's a large splash image or splash page in the original adventure here. We could see some of the buildings of the village, which is called Muffin's Honor, and 2 of the NPCs who are wearing wooden masks to disguise themselves. They are a pair of kobolds. The kobolds depicted are from a village, a clan called Gnurka. You could call it Gnurka Village. The background of the adventure is a kobold sorcerer managed to enspell a group of imps and a chain devil and reduce the chain devil Zorith to a tiny size and trapped it in a coffin-shaped box magically. However, years and years later, maybe decades later, although the box was in their possession, someone opened it, and the miniaturized chain devil, along with the imps, escaped and have now made their way to the village of Muffin's Honor and are causing mischief. The kobold chief wishes to have the imp and kobolds, the imps and miniaturized chain devil sealed back in the box. The only way they can do this is to find the only descendant of the sorcerer who enchanted the box itself, who is a oversized kobold named Lumpy, who is medium sized for a kobold, and who is the captive of a freak show. Now, the adventure gives the player characters several NPCs to work with, or the DM, I should say. These NPCs, as I go down here, are Raspit, son of Clan Chief, who is a 2nd level Kobold Ranger. The DM could just run him as a basic Kobold, but giving him 2 levels of, Kobold Rogue in his case. 2nd level Kobold Rogue. The DM could run him with 2 levels of Rogue as an NPC with a character sheet. And in addition, you have his terribleness, Duke Chupo, Slayer of Rosie the Seamstress, who himself is a 1st level Ranger, 1st level fighter. If players are coming in at 1st level, these 2 NPCs will really be able to aid them. Both have some interesting equipment, such as Raspit having a +1 shield and Duke Chupo having +1 leather armor. This is not overpowered equipment, but it gives them a little extra. When the players meet these 2 kobolds, the players will likely either be in the village and may be aware of the festive freak show on the edge of town, may have even seen some posters for it, which are included in the adventure as part of the illustration work here. Or, and more likely, they will see smoke rising from a burning wagon outside of town. There, a merchant has been attacked by some of the imps, which have murdered him and poisoned him as a result. I say poisoned and then murdered him with their stingers, along with his horse. Emily would be the name of the horse. Now, this attack happened an hour or so before. 3 imps have fled the scene since then, and when the players arrive, they find Raspit and Duke Chupo there, and it seems at first that the 2 kobolds are at fault, and they are doing suspicious things. They are raiding the caravan for coinage. One of the kobolds has hidden the devil box in the nearby forest so that it can't easily be found on them. Players don't know about the devil box in the beginning of the adventure. Now, this creates an interesting scenario which could lead to an encounter between the players and the 2 kobolds. However, There's a third NPC in play. There is an unconscious dwarf who worked for the merchant Erasmus, who is unconscious in the long grass nearby. If a battle takes place, the DM could simply have him wake up in the grass and start bellowing about what happened, where are the imps, or something similar. His name is Stonty Dower Chops. He basically acts as a commoner if you're running this in 5th edition. I don't know. I ran the adventure in 5th edition, and this is roughly what happened. The 2 kobolds in my adventure, for example, joined the party as, let's say, unusual companions. Now, when the 2 kobolds manage to parlay with the player characters, let me show you here. Going down here, they hand a handwritten letter, this handout here, this note, from their chief of Clan Gnurka to the players, outlining the chief's plan to recover Lumpy and to capture the escaped devils and get them back in the box. Now, the players might have some fun reading this and trying to figure out what exactly the kobold chief is trying to say, as it's rather amusing and sort of backwards. And the 2 NPCs, Raspin and Duke Chupo, will attempt to explain it to the players, which may only confuse them in amusing ways, which is what happened in the adventure that I ran. Now, you'll see as well there is an advertisement for Horatio Quigley's Festal Freak Show, including some of the creatures on it, as you can see here, which the players may find in town or the 2 kobolds might have on them. Because this is a 3rd edition adventure, you get some good information on the town itself. It's a generally good aligned town with a lot of gnomes. It was founded by gnomes. There might be some halflings in town. They're mostly human. There's no major temples or anything, although there is a small tavern. As you can see, you get some basic information like who's in charge, who's the mayor, and things like that, and the town watch, and all that basic information. But the town is also in the middle of a festival called the Shackling. And the Shackling is a wedding festival where young people don masks and they run around the village and around the village looking for partners while wearing a mask that they can marry. The kobolds, of course, take advantage of this, and when the players first encounter them, they're poorly disguised as halflings and keep trying to claim that they're halflings. But the players will likely see through this terrible disguise. This does create the possibility of some very interesting situations happening through town where the players encounter other masked individuals, particularly if the players are looking for information about, interesting things taking place in town, such as anyone connected to the imps or may have encountered them, which people may have. It does give you some basic information on the devil box itself, as well as a picture of what it looks like. It looks like a little coffin. The village comes with a map of itself, which it's a little village on the Turtle Run River in kind of a grassy, hilly area with some swampy ground nearby. You can see it has Erasmus's house as one of the locations, which the Stonty can direct the players to, although it doesn't belong to anyone right now with Erasmus's death. It shows the Grumpy Hogfish, a tavern, which is a location the players might venture toward, and likely where there may be a small battle, which I'll get to in a moment. We get Horatio Quigley's Festal Freak Show, a location the players will almost certainly go to, where they will likely find Lumpy, and Mr. Muddletoad's workshop, which is more or less a bleacher house, a house where they bleach dirty clothing and clean it and all that. As we go further down here, you can see there is a table for rumors for things that are happening in town. Perhaps the DM can roll this before the adventure and say to the players, I've heard some odd little rumors, such as the rumor about a little guy sitting in the gutter eating something more red, which is probably one of the imps. If the players are meandering out of town, I'll get more into it later, but there may be backlash for the players asking too many questions. Now, this is an image of Horatio Quigley's Festo Freak Show, his tent, as well as his wagon. And as you see here, as we go in here, you get a picture of Lumpy. Lumpy can basically act as a kobold who is medium sized, might have a little more hit points. You would also get some of the other creatures in the freak show, such as this choker, the incredible boneless man, which might be a minor encounter if the players get too close to it. It would be treated as essentially a restrained choker. You can probably find the stats for it online, which has a movement of 0 because it's in this wagon, or maybe it can move around. It takes its action to move the wagon since it has wheels. It might even be able to break out. It has a stuffed owlbear. It also has some other interesting creatures. The salmon harpy, for example, likely not a real threat. Horatio Quigley himself acts like as a bard. I simply use the bard build in the Volo's Guide to Monsters for him, and the players might end up fighting him, or they might just end up tricking him. Now, in the adventure, he does offer to sell Lumpy to the players, which to an exceedingly high price of about 1,000 gold, although he could be talked down. Player characters, especially at low level, are not likely to ever pay that price. They most likely will either end up fighting him, or they will either try to steal Lumpy from him or trick him in some way or another. If he is not defeated, he can make a great reoccurring threat, although he's not a really super threatening villain. He could come after them later, maybe with the choker on a like a chain leash or something like that. It's just a later encounter trying to get his property back. And as I noted earlier, once they've escaped or freed Lumpy, the imps in town might hear of the player's behavior and that they are looking around town for Zorith, the escaped chain devil. Thus, the encounter devils in the alley, which, as we go further here, we get the stats for. It's meant to take place at or near the Grumpy Hogfish, the tavern in town. I'll note here's an image of the imps and the chain devil who is shrunken in size. It's very comical, but very fitting for the theme of this adventure. I'll show you the Grumpy Hogfish here. This is a map from above the Hogfish. The DM might want to redo the interior in order to, in case the battle enters the interior, particularly if the adventure is played online. When I ran this adventure, it took place outside the Grumpy Hogfish, and the creatures involved are a were-rat, who, in this case, it says Warrior 1, but to transfer it to 5th edition, just use a basic were-rat. Dire rats are pretty easy. They're in the Monsters Manual. And the imp can just be really any imp from the Monsters Manual. To lower down this battle, you can either reduce the number of were rats or dire rats, as I say, and leave the were rat out for now, or have him come in later. Maybe he's just spying on the group. As we go further in here, players will eventually find more information connecting the imps to a place I mentioned earlier, Mr. Muddletoad's workshop, which has an interesting description. It's like a rundown riverside, hovel of a house. A bunch of were-rats are living in this place, or working here at least, and the downstairs has a lot of bleacher vats. It's, they just bleach clothes there, and there's some small rooms both on the side and upstairs. It also contains a very small basement chamber and some warrens for the giant rats that are encountered. Again, I would recommend the players come in with at least 1 or 2 silver weapons, which perhaps they can either find in town, or maybe they find a silver weapon in the burning wagons remains, or somehow they have some weapons to help fight were-rats. Otherwise, it would be a much harder adventure. As the player characters are going through the bleacher house, they will encounter several were-rats, which are a fairly moderate threat, especially if the players are first level. Max Muddletoad himself is a gnomish were-rat who's afflicted with were-rat lycanthropy. In 3rd edition, he's built as a 4th level character with 3 levels of aristocrat, which is like a minor class, and a level of rogue. You could probably just have him be a basic were-rat in 5th edition, but have him be small sized, or to keep him a little more of a threat, the DM could add a an extra hit die to a were rat and give him sneak attack as a first level rogue. Either way, it should work fine. I just built him as a regular were rat. And finally, as you go further into the adventure, the tail end of it, you get the Devil's Banquet in the basement, where you get the remaining imps if they haven't been destroyed, and Zorith himself, the shrunken and cranky Chain Devil. Now, he is effectively under the effect of a reduced spell, which ordinarily would only make him small size, because Chain Devils are medium sized. But because he is shrunk down to tiny size, his abilities should be reduced even further. Effectively, his attacks should do very little damage. The DM can decide how you want to handle that, how badly the reduction can be. But in his small size, he shouldn't be that much of a threat unless he's able to use summoning abilities, or if he's able to resume his normal size. Now, there is a time frame in this adventure, so if there's a time limit, if the player characters are not able to solve the mystery within 3 days, then Zorth does resume his normal medium size and becomes much more powerful and much more dangerous, and a bigger threat to Muffin's honor overall. Now, overall, this is a very good adventure. The highlights for it are the overall concept. The village of Muffin's Honor itself is a quaint little village, and the fact that it takes place during a festival, which opens so many doors to interesting role playing opportunities, such as encountering individuals wandering through the town wearing animal masks that might try to proposition the player characters to marry them. There's a lot of opportunities there. The NPCs of the two kobolds, as well as Shanti and other NPCs the players might encounter, are really fantastic. The handouts in this adventure are really interesting. The artwork is great. There's a lot of extra artwork in it that the DM can simply hand out to individuals or to the player characters. Overall, the only bad I'd say is because it is likely going to be run from an online source, like in this case, an online version of Dungeon Magazine. The maps included here are going to be rather low quality, including the handouts. The DM might have the actual adventure. I have the actual magazine itself, so I was able to show the handouts in person. But if you don't have that, the quality level of the art, the way it's published online, might be kind of might be lacking a little bit. But other than that, this is a very good adventure, and I would rate it 5 stars out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend it. I'll note when my players played it, they ended up taking over the Mr. Muddletoad's workshop and began running it as their own bleacher house and base of operations before they wandered away from Muffin's Honor and never came back. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this adventure. Again, it's very, very good. The author in question, like I said, he also wrote the Styes, and I've looked at a few other adventures. Richard Pett here that he's written, and he is a fantastic D&D writer. It's actually rather tragic that he hasn't written more material, as all the adventures I've seen of his are really unique and really fantastic. I will add that I managed to redraw the maps for Mistle Metaltude's workshop, aka the Bleacher House, through Dungeon Draft. You can see the bottom level on the left, including the bleacher vats and the kitchen, the stairway that heads downstairs to the basement, as well as the stairs outside that, head somewhere. They're not really part of, they're in an alley to another building. But there is an upstairs you can also go to via some ladders, which overlook the bleaching vats, where there's a private bedroom for Mr. Muddletude and some rather filthy bedchambers for the were rats that he employs, as well as you can see the cellar map here, which has a more detailed description of the actual banquet room and tunnels for the dire rats.